Somewhere in the English countryside stands a house, its brick walls cracked, its stained glass windows fractured. Once rumored to belong to David Bowie, today it looks more like a ghost of a home than a rock star's retreat. The contrast could not be sharper. Bowie, the man who lit up stadiums with Ziggy Stardust's glitter and charisma, now remembered through whispers of abandoned mansions, tragic loss, and a fortune that still grows. Today, we retrace his journey, from childhood sparks to superstardom, from hidden homes to his final goodbye. David Robert Jones, later to be known to the world as David Bowie, was born on January 8, 1947 in Brixton, South London. The son of a waitress and a promotions officer, Bowie's childhood was defined by frequent moves between working-class neighborhoods, where he found solace in art and music. By age 13, after hearing the magic of American jazz records, he picked up the saxophone, an instrument that became his first gateway to the sonic experiments that would later define his career. In his teenage years, Bowie joined a series of local bands. He first played with the Conrads, then the King Bees, learning the ropes of performance while playing small gigs around London. Yet as talented as he was, he also faced a problem. His birth name was too easily confused with Davy Jones of the Monkees. And so, in the mid-1960s, he rechristened himself David Bowie, borrowing the name from the American frontiersman Jim Bowie. The choice was deliberate. The Bowie knife was sharp, distinctive, and iconic, just as he wanted his persona to be. The breakthrough came in 1969 with Space Oddity. Released just as the Apollo 11 moon landing captured the world's imagination, the song told the haunting tale of Major Tom, an astronaut lost in the void. It hit the UK charts and introduced Bowie as not just a singer, but a storyteller who could merge pop music with cultural moments. Still, greater transformations lay ahead. By 1972, Bowie unleashed his most famous alter ego, Ziggy Stardust, the alien rock star from another planet. With fiery red hair, glittering costumes, and a stage presence that bent gender norms, Ziggy was both shocking and irresistible. The album The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars turned him into a global phenomenon. Glam rock had found its prophet, and David Bowie had cemented his place as one of the most daring performers of the era. The 1970s became a golden decade. Bowie's chameleon-like ability to reinvent himself produced a string of iconic albums. Aladdin Sane, 1973, often called Ziggy Goes to America, Diamond Dogs, 1974, a dystopian concept album, and Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, 1980, which brought art rock into the mainstream. In 1983, Let's Dance catapulted him into pop superstardom, with hits like Modern Love and China Girl dominating MTV. Each reinvention blurred the lines between music, theater, and fashion, leaving a trail of influence that went far beyond the charts. But Bowie never settled. In 1989, restless with solo success, he formed the hard rock band Tin Machine, alongside guitarist Reeves Gabrels and the Sales Brothers. Though divisive, the project allowed him to reset creatively. By 1993, he returned to solo work with Black Tie White Noise, an album that merged electronic beats with jazz and soul, reflecting both his marriage to supermodel Iman and his evolving global sensibilities. Over the following decades, Bowie continued to experiment. His 1990s and 2000s albums may not have hit the same commercial peaks, but they showed an artist who refused to become a nostalgia act. Then, in a final act of brilliance, Bowie orchestrated his farewell. On January 8, 2016, his 69th birthday, he released Black Star, a haunting jazz-infused masterpiece. Just 2 days later, he died from liver cancer. The album instantly became a cultural event, part requiem, part revelation, cementing his reputation as an artist who turned even death into art. Across 5 decades, Bowie sold more than 100 million records worldwide, earned inductions into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and influenced countless musicians, designers, and filmmakers. He wasn't just a rock star, he was a cultural architect, reshaping music, fashion, and identity for generations. But while the spotlight shone brightest on his music, Bowie's life was also tied to the places he lived, the homes that gave him refuge, inspired creativity, and eventually left behind stories as enigmatic as the man himself. Abandoned house in England. Hidden in the English countryside stands a property long rumored to have ties to David Bowie. Spanning more than 4,000 square feet, the house stretches across 2 full stories with an additional attic, offering the sense of grandeur once fit for a star. Inside, the remnants of charm still whisper through the dust. The living room opens wide around a stone fireplace, suggesting winters once warmed by crackling fires. The dining room, with its crystal chandelier scattering light through stained glass windows, evokes an elegance now dulled with age. The original wooden floors, though worn, remain intact, bearing silent witness to lives and footsteps that may have passed decades ago. Yet the years have not been kind. Exterior brick walls are cracked, ivy winds across windows, and patches of roof lines sag from neglect. Though the plumbing and electrical systems have been updated, the house demands extensive restoration before its former beauty could shine again. Today, locals call it simply the abandoned Bowie house, though no official record proves exactly when or for how long he owned it. That absence of clarity only deepens the intrigue. In American terms, it recalls the forgotten celebrity homes of the Hollywood Hills, grand estates once pulsing with glamour, now left to decay, holding stories the public can only guess at. And while this abandoned English house tells of neglect, Bowie's other residences, like and his penthouse in New York, capture a different narrative, one of style, creativity, and the enduring presence of a legend. Penthouse in Manhattan, New York. In 1999, David Bowie and his wife, supermodel Iman, made one of their most significant real estate moves, spending $4 million to acquire and combine 2 penthouses in Manhattan. The result was a breathtaking 5,300 square foot residence that became their family home for nearly 2 decades. It was here, in this penthouse, that Bowie lived out his final years and ultimately passed away in 2016. The property described it as a luxurious yet cozy apartment with 3 perfectly placed balconies. And stepping inside, it's easy to see why. Designed by one of Europe's most respected architects, the interior is a blend of understated sophistication and livable warmth. A private elevator opens directly into a grand entry hall, which flows seamlessly into a 56 by 22-foot living room. With windows on 3 sides and a west-facing balcony, the space floods with natural light, a rare find in the dense fabric of New York City. The living room's 11-foot ceilings create an airy, gallery-like atmosphere, perfectly suited for displaying Bowie's vast art collection. Anchoring the room is a modern fireplace, complemented by an adjoining library complete with its own bathroom. Nearby, an open kitchen balances sleek European cabinetry with functionality, making it as practical for family dinners as it was for hosting gatherings with fellow artists and friends. The master suite alone spans more than 1,000 square feet, a private retreat within the already sprawling home. It includes a fireplace, an expansive dressing room, and a spa-like bathroom with deep soaking tub and separate shower. From the private terrace, Bowie and Iman could gaze out over the bustle of Soho, a quiet vantage point above the city that never sleeps. The rest of the residence features 3 additional bedrooms, 3 full bathrooms, and a powder room, offering comfort and privacy for their family, friends, and visiting guests. It was, by all accounts, both a sanctuary and a showpiece. Adding to its allure is the building's history. Located at 285 Lafayette Street, The structure was originally built in 1886 as the Hawley and Hoops Chocolate Factory. In 1999, it was converted into a full-service apartment building with modern amenities while preserving its industrial character. For Bowie, who had long balanced his love of reinvention with his appreciation for heritage, this building seemed a fitting choice, old bones with a fresh identity. For Bowie and Iman, this penthouse was more than just a residence. It was where they raised their daughter Lexi, where Bowie quietly fought his final battle with cancer, and where he lived not as an untouchable icon, but as a husband and father. Fans often speak of the property as sacred ground, the place where the Starman descended back to Earth and lived his most human moments. If his abandoned English house represents mystery and decay, then this New York penthouse symbolizes legacy and permanence. It is a home that tells the story of a man who embraced both glamour and intimacy, spectacle and privacy. But as much as Bowie loved his homes, his true empire was built not from bricks and mortar, but from music, performance, and art. Those legacies translated into a fortune that continues to grow long after his passing. Income and net worth. When David Bowie passed away in January 2016, his net worth was estimated at around $230 million, a staggering fortune for a man who, at one point in his early career, struggled just to sell enough records to pay the bills. In the years since, thanks to careful estate management and the undying demand for his music, that figure has grown to more than $300 million today. The foundation of Bowie's fortune, of course, was his music catalog. With over 100 million records sold worldwide, spanning from Space Oddity to Black Star, the royalties from both physical sales and, in recent years, digital streaming continue to generate millions annually. His estate saw a massive windfall in 2022 when his entire catalog, encompassing hits, deep cuts, and unreleased works, was sold to Warner Chappell Music for $250 million. The deal ensured Bowie's songs would remain in circulation across generations while securing financial stability for his family. Bowie had always been financially innovative. In 1997, he pioneered the idea of Bowie bonds, securitizing future royalties from 25 albums into $55 million worth of asset-backed securities. This made him not just a musician, but a trailblazer in the business of music finance, influencing how artists from Bob Dylan to Taylor Swift would later manage their catalogs. Concert tours also filled Bowie's coffers. His Glass Spider Tour, 1987, grossed around $86 million, a staggering figure for its time, while earlier and later tours alike pulled in tens of millions. Bowie's ability to reinvent himself with each tour, from Ziggy Stardust to the Thin White Duke to the late-era elder statesman of art rock, kept audiences filling arenas for decades. Beyond music, Bowie was an avid art collector. His collection of over 400 works, which included pieces by Basquiat, Damien Hirst, and Frank Auerbach, was valued at more than $100 million. In 2016, Sotheby's auctioned off much of the collection, netting $41 million in sales. The event drew global headlines, not only for the artworks themselves, but for how deeply Bowie had immersed himself in the art world as both a patron and creator. Bowie also earned through his acting career, appearing in cult classics like The Man Who Fell to Earth, 1976, Jim Henson's fantasy film Labyrinth, 1986, and Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, 2006, where he played Nikola Tesla. Though acting was a side passion, these roles reinforced his versatility and added to his cultural reach. He wasn't afraid to dabble in ventures either. In 1998, long before streaming became the norm, Bowie launched BowieNet, one of the earliest artist-run internet service providers and fan communities. He also founded his own label, ISO Records, and even dipped into fashion with limited clothing collaborations that reflected his iconic style. Each endeavor showed Bowie's instinct for staying ahead of cultural trends. Today, Bowie's estate, driven by music, art, and smart deals, placing him alongside legends like John Lennon and Elvis Presley in the pantheon of musicians whose fortunes endure long after their passing. Yet wealth was only part of Bowie's story. Just as important was how he used his fame and resources to support causes close to his heart. Philanthropy. Unlike some celebrities who used philanthropy as a public platform, Bowie often gave discreetly, letting his actions, rather than press releases, tell the story. One of the causes closest to his heart was AIDS research. The epidemic claimed the life of his close friend and collaborator Freddie Mercury in 1991, and Bowie was among the first major artists to stand up publicly. He performed at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert for AIDS awareness at Wembley Stadium in 1992, singing "All the Young Dudes" alongside Ian Hunter and Mick Ronson, then joining Elton John and Annie Lennox for an emotional rendition of "Under Pressure." The concert raised more than $35 million for AIDS research and awareness, and Bowie's participation helped bring legitimacy and urgency to the cause. Bowie was also a supporter of children's charities. He contributed to Save the Children and War Child, organizations focused on providing aid to vulnerable children caught in poverty and war zones. His participation wasn't limited to money. He also lent his name, image, and music to campaigns, helping them gain visibility in an era when global conflicts often slipped from headlines. His fascination with spirituality and world cultures found an outlet in his work with Tibet House, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving Tibetan culture. In the 1990s and 2000s, he performed benefit concerts for Tibet House in New York, sharing the stage with artists like Philip Glass and Patti Smith. For Bowie, this wasn't just philanthropy, it was an extension of his lifelong exploration of identity, culture, and belief systems. In his final years, Bowie also provided support for cancer research. Although he kept his own diagnosis secret until the very end, those close to him revealed that he quietly directed donations to organizations working on early detection and treatment. It was consistent with his nature, generous but guarded about personal matters. Bowie's philosophy on charity echoed his philosophy on art. It was about creating meaning and leaving the world richer than he found it. He used his fame as a bridge, shining light on issues that others ignored, from global health crises to cultural preservation. Behind the constant reinvention on stage, he lived through turbulent relationships, found true companionship, and left behind a family that remained central to his legacy. Personal life. His first marriage was to Angie Barnett, an American model and actress, in 1970. The union was as fiery as it was creative. Together, they welcomed a son, Duncan Zowie Haywood Jones, in 1971, later known as Duncan Jones, who would grow up to become an acclaimed filmmaker. Yet, their marriage was often strained, marked by Bowie's grueling touring schedule, artistic ambitions, and the couple's unconventional lifestyle. By 1980, after years of turbulence, the marriage ended in divorce. Duncan was raised primarily by Bowie, and though his childhood was complicated by fame, father and son eventually forged a strong bond. Bowie's second marriage, however, brought him stability and joy. In 1992, he married Iman Abdul-Majid, the Somali-American supermodel and philanthropist. The wedding, held in Florence, Italy, was a union of two icons, but beyond the glamour, their relationship was grounded in mutual respect and devotion. In 2000, they welcomed their daughter, Alexandria Zara Lexi Jones, who quickly became the center of Bowie's world. This chapter of his life inspired new music, including the album Black Tie, White Noise, which reflected themes of love and renewal. Friends described Bowie and Iman as inseparable, a couple who managed to preserve their privacy while balancing careers in the public eye. Outside of his marriages, Bowie's personal identity also became a cultural flashpoint. In the early 1970s, he famously came out as bisexual, a declaration that shocked conservative audiences but liberated countless fans who saw themselves reflected in his boldness. His gender-bending fashion, stage personas, and willingness to challenge norms helped pave the way for broader conversations about sexuality and self-expression in popular culture. Though later in life he sometimes downplayed the label, the impact of his openness was undeniable. Behind the scenes, his health was beginning to falter, leading to a chapter that would reveal just how carefully he had choreographed even his own farewell. Health and death. On January 10, 2016, at his apartment in New York City, Bowie passed away from liver cancer. The news came just 2 days after the release of Black Star, his 25th and final studio album, a work many fans and critics later realized had been carefully designed as his parting gift. What the world did not know at the time was that Bowie had been privately battling cancer for 18 months. True to his lifelong commitment to maintaining an aura of mystique, he never publicly disclosed his condition. Not even close collaborators knew the full extent of his illness, making his sudden departure feel both shocking and eerily poetic. In the hours and days following his death, the world erupted in grief. Impromptu shrines appeared in cities across the globe. In Brixton, South London, his birthplace, fans gathered around a mural of Bowie painted years earlier, covering it with flowers, candles, handwritten notes, and breaking into communal renditions of Starman and Heroes. Similar scenes unfolded in Berlin, where Bowie had reinvented himself during the 1970s, in Los Angeles, and outside his New York apartment. These gatherings became not just tributes to a beloved musician, but moments of collective mourning and celebration for a cultural figure who had reshaped music, fashion, and identity. The impact of his passing was immediate. Sales of Bowie's albums and singles skyrocketed, flooding the charts once again. Yet, in keeping with his desire for privacy and simplicity, Bowie had left strict instructions. There was to be no public funeral. According to his death certificate, he was cremated in New Jersey, and his ashes were later scattered in Bali during a Buddhist ceremony, honoring his spiritual leanings and lifelong fascination with Eastern philosophy. Bowie's will revealed another side of his careful planning. He left behind an estate estimated at around $100 million. His wife, the supermodel Iman, and his 2 children, Duncan Jones and Alexandria Zara, inherited the majority of it. Bowie's daughter received 25% of his real estate holdings, including his cherished estate on Little Tonchi Mountain in New York, while his son was also given 25%. Iman received the remainder, ensuring stability and security for the family he adored. Bowie also remembered those who had been central to his journey, gifting $2 million to his longtime assistant, Corinne Schwab, and $1 million to Marion Skeen, the nanny who had helped raise Duncan. These gestures revealed a man who, despite his celestial stage persona, remained grounded in loyalty to those closest to him. The tributes that poured in from around the globe spoke volumes about his influence. At its peak, Twitter registered 20,000 tweets per minute about Bowie, an astonishing digital vigil for a man who had once been seen as an alien figure in popular culture. From fellow musicians to political leaders, the responses highlighted the breadth of his impact. Cardinal Gianfranco Ravasi quoted the lyrics of Space Oddity. The German Federal Foreign Office thanked Bowie for helping inspire hope in Berlin during the Cold War years, directly linking his 1987 performance of Heroes near the Berlin Wall to the spirit of resistance that would eventually bring it down. Few artists could claim such a wide reach, from Vatican officials to government ministries, all acknowledging the same man. His legacy was quickly preserved in film and performance. On January 7, 2017, the BBC released the documentary David Bowie, The Last 5 Years, offering a detailed look at the music and artistry he created in his final chapter. A day later, on what would have been his 70th birthday, his longtime friend Gary Oldman organized a charity concert in Brixton, bringing together artists and fans for a night of music and remembrance. Walking tours of Bowie's childhood streets in Brixton were launched, and tribute concerts were staged in New York, Los Angeles, Sydney, and Tokyo. In every corner of the globe, people found ways to keep Bowie's light burning. David Bowie's death did not silence him. If anything, it amplified the voice he had cultivated over 5 decades, reminding the world of how deeply he had embedded himself into the cultural DNA of music, fashion, and art. His final act, a carefully orchestrated farewell through Black Star, ensured that even in death he was still leading the conversation, still ahead of us all. What remains is timeless, an immortal catalog of music, a vast financial and cultural legacy, and an enduring influence that continues to shape generations. Subscribe and ring the bell to explore more stories of homes, fortunes, and legacies left behind by the world's greatest music legends. Thank you for watching the video. We hope you found this video useful. Subscribe and hit the bell to discover more unforgettable stories of the homes and legacies of music's greatest legends. And see you in the next videos. Goodbye.